Science and Paranormal with Dr. Yana and Dr. Elliott, where science meets the unexpected, where we delve deep into the mysteries that straddle the line between scientific inquiry and paranormal. Get ready for a mind-altering journey as we embark on this phenomenal discovery together on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM.
All right, welcome to another episode of Science and the Paranormal. This is Dr. Elliott with Dr. Yana, and we are recording live from the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from New Orleans, and also on Roku TV.
Fantastic, Dr. Elliott.
Dr. Yana, how are you doing?
Yay! Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Elliott. It has been an interesting week. We are so lucky to have Dr. Elliott with us today because he has not been feeling well and he's been preparing for this show all day long, drinking herbal teas, taking baths. Did you go to the barber?
No, not yet.
No, barber.
Not yet. Didn't have the energy for that. Oh my God. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I caught the actual influenza. I had all the symptoms of it. And I haven't had it in a couple years, and I never got around to getting the flu shot yet. So I'm pretty sure that's what struck me down. And yeah, it's not too fun.
I'm pretty sure that being immunized, it didn't strike you down. So,
well, that's true.
The flu is, but
it brought me down a couple notches. But you're right. It didn't strike me down per se. Yeah.
No. But we're so glad that you're here with us because you could have easily said, I'm so sick with a man flu, having a low-grade fever and you're moping around dying there.
Well, I was making a joke about it at first because, I know that men usually tend to be, act like they're sicker than women. And Sarah and I got into that debate one time, and then we looked it up on ChatGPT because there are some articles out there that say, and they claim to be scientifically backed that men do get sicker than women and stuff like that. But we looked it up on artificial intelligence, and apparently it's not true. Men and women get sick just the same. You guys are just tougher.
And how come? Are you just better than us in some ways?
I don't know. This one's been brutal though.
How come there's no such a thing as women's flu? Because we don't have a flu. We have to care for the families, husbands, houses, works, and everything like that. We don't have a chance.
It's true. You guys don't have time to get sick. It's so true.
No. So thank you for being here today and discussing this incredible topic of law enforcement and mediums.
Yes, yeah, law enforcement mediums. So law enforcement is a fairly closed-off community when it comes to the paranormal. I wrote a couple of books on the paranormal and law enforcement. The first one was Supernatural Encounters, True Paranormal Accounts from Law Enforcement, and the second one was More Supernatural Encounters from Law Enforcement. But generally, police officers are kind of closed off on sharing their paranormal experiences with people. So I lucked out. I don't know if it was my background in law enforcement because I served 15 years with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police myself. And the fact that, I do paranormal investigations and have been involved in parapsychology for 26 years. But I managed to get people to open up to me and kind of share their experiences with me. Which, I'm very, very fortunate about, but it's kind of something you don't hear about a whole lot. And when it comes to law enforcement using mediums for investigations, it's certainly not considered a conventional investigative technique,
But in which cases would you usually employ them?
So a lot of times I find in my experience anyway, up here in Canada, mediums would contact us, and it would usually be in missing person cases. and of course they would give the information, and we do have to follow up on it. When you're running a major case file, every lead that comes in does have to be followed up on, especially if there's going to be criminal charges down the road, because otherwise, if you don't, it's what they call a red herring. It's something that can be brought up in court, and it's a investigative lead that you never followed up on at some point that can be brought into question. So they'd usually call with some information. You'd have to document that in the police file, and then of course follow up on it. Wouldn't happen too often. I'd say that there was a couple cold cases when I worked up in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. For anyone that's in Canada there, that's up in the subarctic, very cold spot. We had a couple of cold cases that had mediums had called in. Actually, there was a girl that had gone missing just outside Yellowknife, and a medium had called in from New Mexico with information. It didn't really seem to match the case at all. When I read it, it was, totally different information, even the landscape and things like that. But somebody took the effort to call it in. We have to document it. We have to follow it up, kind of thing. So it is taken seriously. I think I talked about on another podcast once. I had a friend contact me that does remote viewing, and she was seeing an article around London about a missing person, and she was kind of getting some information about it, and she had contacted me and asked me, she should call the police. And I said, yeah. I said, if I were you, I'd call them and just explain to them, like, who you are and what you do, and provide them with the information. I said, if they're professional, they'll follow up on the leads. And so sure enough, she did. She called, she gave them the information. The detective that she spoke to was really, really good. He actually phoned her back several times to get some follow-up information, and they took her information really serious, which was nice to see.
So what was the outcome?
Still missing. Yep, still missing.
So she didn't provide any valuable information that she thought that she did have something.
No. Excuse me. No, she didn't. She provided the information that she had, but nothing turned up from it. Now, with that being said, there's one case that I often talk about. Her name was Dorothy Allison. She's deceased now, but she was a medium that would help out the New York Police Department quite a bit. And she was working with them on this missing girl case, and she could see an oil drum. She could see the number 222, and she could see the word MAR, M-A-R. And it didn't make any sense to the police, but they documented in the file. And she said, I'm not sure. This is just the information that I'm getting. And about 2 years later, over in Staten Island, they actually found the girl's body. It was inside an oil drum that had the number 222 on it. And next to it was a rock that had the word MAR spray painted on it. Mm. So you just never know when that information might become important.
So for how many years did she work with the New York Police Department?
She's done several cases with the New York Police Department, which is New York Police Department's interesting because I know they have had a couple officers that have also been paranormal investigators as well. One, I think they have a TV show and or had a TV show, and then there was another one where they made a movie about it. So they might be a little bit more open to the idea, but for the most part, most law enforcement agencies will kind of use it as a last resort, or the family will get the mediums involved. That happens quite a bit. I interviewed a guy in my book. Chuck was his name. He was a retired police officer from Salem, and he moved to Florida. And he got a call one day from a family saying that their son was missing and that the police have exhausted all their leads. And the police actually suggested to them maybe contact the medium and see if there's anything that you can find out. So they found Chuck's website and they contacted him, and so he started looking into it, and he told me that he was getting the information from their son that was missing. So right off the bat, he was really nervous about that because to him that means that the person's crossed over and that he's dealing with the spiritual soul of that person. So he didn't want to tell the family that he's basically conversing with their dead son. But he was able to get a bunch of information about the son, which turned out to be accurate. For example, he said he could see this truck, and there was like McDonald's garbage on the passenger floor, and they said, "Yeah, that sounds like our son's truck. He's got like a old beat up Ford, and he's always throwing his fast food wrappers on the floor there." And they asked if he liked to rock climb because he could see almost like bloody knuckles. And they said, yeah, he's an avid rock climber and all this stuff. So they ended up getting a map out, and the son was trying to give the medium Chuck the coordinates on where he was. And they managed to narrow it down to this kind of remote park area. And they gave the coordinates to the police, and they had to use ATVs to kind of get into the spot, but they found him, and the son had committed suicide. And I guess he had a fight with his girlfriend, and things weren't going well, and they ended up finding his truck and his body, and the family was happy that they had closure, even though it wasn't positive news, but they were happy that they had some closure. And then, of course, the police were asking Chuck all kinds of questions, like when's his last time he's been to California and all that stuff, because they were, starting to think maybe he was a suspect or something, because how did he have all this accurate information? But
Yeah, that is so interesting. That's very interesting. And if you employ, I guess, legitimate mediums, because there are a lot of fake ones as well, difficult rather to say that they're professional mediums, because you don't go to school of mediumship, right? But some people that can actually see. But what is mediumship? In the scientific language, it is called remote viewing. And that is so interesting, to the extent that we will go in order to set ourselves aside from this layman terms as a psychic, a clairvoyant, and move toward more scientific terms. Like I, for example, call myself a seer. I don't want to be called or even be seen as a clairvoyant or even a medium, because I am not. And as a PhD, I'm trying to think, like, how am I going to come out of the closet, so to say? What am I going to call myself? I'm not a clairvoyant, because when you tell people that they immediately assume, oh, are you a clairvoyant? Are you a psychic? I'm not a psychic. But that information on remote viewing is essentially the same as mediumship. And there was a very interesting project called the Stargate Project, and you know about it. And so $20 million been poured by the defense agency, U.S. Defense Agency, to this project. And that is so interesting that they have been conducted so many sessions of remote viewing to identify the objects of the enemy on the long distances. And that would essentially be sleepers, correct? They call them sleepers.
Yeah, no, they spend a lot of money on studying remote viewing. A lot of the information that they gathered from that project is still classified to this day, which is interesting. Having worked for the government before myself, the only reason that you would do that is, if it has information that would jeopardize national security, or it would release an investigative technique that you don't want the public to know about.
If they're declassified, for example, the CIA took over in 1995, and they declassified a lot of documents from the Stargate project. So a lot of that was their claim, that it was so scientifically not valid, and the majority of the cases were not even been able even to identify any objects of the enemy, any in any country. So that was so interesting to me that for 20 million dollars from 1978 to 1995, this project was up and running, and but a lot of people involved, and then all of a sudden it was deemed invalid and unscientific and not much coming out of it. So it was deemed as pseudoscience. But nevertheless, in your experience, Dr. Elliott, would the government actually spend so much money and time on a project and later disqualify it completely if
Well,
there was no evidence?
there is a lot of wasteful spending in the government. There's no doubt about that. What I think happened in this one, though, where there's still a lot of documents that they haven't released. I would say that there's something in there that they've discovered, or there's information in there that they wouldn't want other countries to know about, and that could be the technique, or maybe they saw a couple of things while they were doing the remote viewing as well that they don't want people to know about. Um, there's certainly a reason why they wouldn't disclose everything, for sure.
And
And I
that
do
is a
find it.
very that's very important, by the way. And I remember that the Alan Dulles, who used to be the head of the CIA, he said our only problem, because he was comparing CIA to the Russian KGB, and he said that our only problem why we are still inferior to the Russians is because we cannot keep our mouth shut.
Hmm.
And that just, I was stricken by it. And I said, that's exactly what it is. And I read his book like probably 25 years ago. And that's exactly is the case. Yeah, because we don't want certain documents to be published.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, the CIA's had an interest in the paranormal for a long time. They've collected a lot of strange material. I was just on the internet the other day and came across a couple of articles from the Journal of Parapsychology, I think, that they had classified at some point and then they declassified it. So, like they were collecting material on, especially to do with psychics and ESP and psi abilities and things like that. So definitely, something that they're interested in. There's been a lot of scientific studies done in laboratories as well on ESP and psychokinesis and remote viewing that have had statistical significance above chance. So you could see how the government would be, interested in learning more about this, especially if you could use it for warfare and things like that to discover targets, like you said, targets you might not know about, and collect
Yeah.
intelligence. You know,
But it
very.
originally started in 1972 in Stanford Research Institute by Russell Targ.
Mm,
And 65% of the cases, they have to have the 65% of the accuracy rate, just 65% in order for the project to uh, go on. Now,
yeah,
who is sick here? Dr. Elliott, you just, you contaminating me. Stop coughing there.
I know. I'm trying to mute out anytime I cough so I don't pass it along to you digitally. Yeah. No,
Look at this.
it's very it's very interesting though, the use of mediums, because it has solved, some cases. Um, uh, there was a there was another case that Dorothy Allison did, actually. She, like I said, she was really popular. She did one in Atlanta City. I think it was called the Atlanta Child Murders, and they ended up contacting her, and she provided specific details about the victims and the location that was connected to the case. And her information didn't directly lead to the arrest of the perpetrator, but it did draw significant media attention, and they did end up finding a suspect named Wayne Williams, I believe, and had arrested him. So, um, again, you just when that information comes to you, you're not really sure what it means. So that's why it's important as a police officer to document all that in the file, because you never know when you're going to have to go back and review your notes and when it'll make sense to you. Um, yeah, no, it's important to know. I think even a lot of times when the mediums get the information, they're not even sure why they're getting certain pieces of information. It's just coming to them. And like you said, they use remote viewing. They might use actual mediumship, like where they're talking to a deceased person, or sometimes they'll use psychometry, where they use an item and they gain some information from that item. Maybe the missing person left something, excuse me, significant behind, and they can use that to gain information.
Yeah, and that is also, in fact, mediums are also instrumental in having a closure. Yes, it is good to find the missing relatives, for example. But at the same time, even if you find them, uh, of course, there is a sense of grief, the overwhelming grief. And then I guess just by being able to find the son that those people were looking for, that gave them a sense of closure. I remember myself having a very interesting case that was I wasn't with at the church. I guess it was the house. The several people got together, and they were praying and reading the Bible. And I was invited as a guest. That was the first time when I almost like within the first year that I arrived to the United States. And they called me, and I came over, and we were having a good time. And when everybody prayed, I had a very interesting vision. I had the face of a young man coming on to me, like a big, big face with an incredibly wide smile, a fantastic human being. And he said, "Tell my parents that I am doing okay, because it's been," he said, the 6 months and they have not been able to find their closure. Just tell them that I am okay and I'm doing fine. And he ended that. He said, "Give them the three-way hug." And he pointed out to the people that I was supposed to tell it. And I did. I revealed that to the couple, and they were in their 40s. I didn't know that their son died. And I said, "There is a message for you, in fact." And when they listened to me, they did not believe at first, and they had to go and consult with a pastor because, anything can transpire. So I told them that everything was fine, and that he wanted them to know that everything was okay. And I described the way he looked and what he was saying. But the thing is, nothing would persuade them. And I said, "I'm not here to persuade you in that." He asked me to give you a three-way hug. And they started crying because they said, "He is the only person and the only child in our family that was always like to give three-way hugs. And you didn't have any way of knowing." So 6 months after their son died, somehow he was able to come back and talk to them about it. But they said that we were crying and asking God to show us, to reveal to us what had happened to our son after death, whether he was okay or not, because he was in a car accident. And nothing, they didn't hear anything. And they were pretty good Christians, and they would pray every single day and communicate with God. And so they couldn't. The interesting thing about that the death of their son was very abrupt, was very sudden. Since the very early childhood, he would not allow his parents to start the car if he was not buckled. And
Hmm.
then he was, I think he was 21 years old, and he would always buckle up. But he just finished the police academy, and he didn't sleep all night long, and he just passed exams, and he was driving back home, and that was the first time that he wasn't buckled. and he hit the big tree of the highway, and he died immediately on the spot.
Oh,
So
geez.
they did not, they were unconsolable, of course, that they couldn't even understand what was happening. And to find this kind of a closure after 6 months of their son dying was very important to them. So whether people are just seers or mediums or clairvoyant or remote viewers, it is so everything is essentially is the same. It's just the remote viewing is in fact developed pretty sophisticated um, protocols in order to be able to remote view. But at the same time, it's all the same. So closure is very important to people.
Oh, definitely, like you said, and that is one of the positive things about psychics and mediums is that if it's done properly, it can provide closure to people, not just in law enforcement investigations, but just in general. I know I've known lots of people that have gone to see a medium after a loved one's passed away, and they get some sort of message that is meaningful to them that's come through the medium, and it makes them feel at peace. It gives them belief that there's life after death and that their loved one's okay, and it kind of helps with that healing and grieving process. So
It does. But I
yeah.
noticed that somehow after people die, there is this 6 months period during which they cannot come through onto our side. And after 6 months, they're able to uh, communicate. So that is very interesting. I don't understand why it's 6 months. So in my practice, it's been a lot, and I've noticed that 6 months is like the target mark. So that's interesting.
That is really interesting, and yeah, no, it's I think it's a positive thing to help people, kind of move on. There's
And for the mediums also, it is very important also to live their life understanding that they are not only helping people here, but they're also helping the deceased ones, because a lot of the times they would want to come through and they try to find some sort of a closure. And that may sound as really nonsensical, but at the same time, if we look at that, that there was an alive human being, and we consider this life, physical life, and our physical body is the only life, and then those people pass away and they go into a different world, and then somehow all of a sudden they're all dead and they are called bodies. So there was just a person, and as soon as the person died, it is a body. It always uh, just gave me shivers, just momentarily. 1 second the person is alive, and the next second he's called a body. So but those kinds of in those kinds of cases, I believe that those people also find closure by contacting the mediums here on Earth. Do you remember that movie? Of course, it was a comedy, The Ghost. Remember, with Demi Moore? Remember, and Whoopi Goldberg? It was so incredible. Sometimes I laugh at myself because sometimes this is exactly how it feels to me. Although I don't walk around on the street and talk to anybody like that into the air.
That's
But
funny. I'll have to watch that now. It's been a long time since I saw
I know
that.
it's such a great, great, great movie. I
Yeah.
remember myself that I had a friend coming over from the overseas from Europe, and she stayed with me with her 1 year old child, and she had a boyfriend there back there in Russia, and she was uh, she would just stay indefinitely, and that is so interesting to me because she didn't have a work, she didn't have anything else, and she would just stay with me indefinitely, which was already a month. And her boyfriend, which I never met in my life, he would be calling me from Moscow and telling me, you tell her to clean after herself, you tell her to wash dishes, to do this and that. And I said, listen, I can't do that. She's my guest. So it was so funny. But I've never actually met him in my entire life. I did not even know how he looked like. So all of a sudden, like after about a week of communicating with him as well, over the phone, not even the video calls, because it was a long time ago. We did not have video calls at the time, only through the computer, through Skype. I would get all of a sudden the sense that she needs to go home because something is going to happen. And I told her that. And she got so upset and offended that I was kicking her out, essentially, which I was not. But I told her that you have to be home. There's something that is going to happen. I don't know what exactly. I cannot even read it, but you have to be home. So she packed up and she went home. And she calls me the next day and she tells me that so good that I came home because her boyfriend was shot that very day and he died.
Wow.
He was one of those big shots in Moscow and had probably many enemies. And he was shot. And she said that if I didn't come home, I would have never been able to see him or even to say goodbye. Which in those cases you can never say goodbye, but at least she was able to see him. So what happened after that? I, being in the United States, I that was the evening, and I was going about my evening routine to get ready to go to bed, and all of a sudden, I see a person coming through the glass doors, and he comes to me, and he stops by me, and starts speaking Russian. And like, what is going on here? And he told me his name. And he was wearing this brown pants and gray jacket. And he told me to, he asked me actually to tell his girlfriend that he loved her. He said, please tell her that I loved her. He said that I never told her that, and for which I regret never telling her that I loved her. But please tell her that I love her and I want her to be happy. And I turned around because I did not want to see anything like that. I said, okay, maybe I'm hallucinating. It's nighttime. I want to go to sleep, whatever it is. So in about 10 minutes, he comes back and he said, I asked you just like that. I asked you to tell her. And I remembered Whoopi Goldberg. Okay. Okay. that was funny and tragic at the same time. So I'm calling her and I'm telling her, I have something to tell you that you may not believe, or you believe whatever it is, but it doesn't really matter to me. So I told her that her boyfriend said that he loved her, and she immediately said that he never told me that he loved me. I said, that is exactly why. He said, he never told you that he loved you, but that is why he wanted to let you know and for you to be happy. And I described what he was wearing. And she started crying. He said that was exactly what he was wearing when he died.
Wow.
So people on the other side, I call them people, like, yeah, they became spirits. They became ghosts, essentially what we call them. But they were people. Just the day before, they were people, alive human beings that you communicated with. They left their human body, but nevertheless, they remain humans, I guess, in the spirit form.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of the way that we teach teach our parapsychology students as well, is to have respect when you're on these ghost hunts, and to realize that these spirits used to be living human individuals that had feelings and emotions just like we do, and don't go in there screaming at them and trying to treat them like a circus animal. I've actually been on investigations with other groups, not my organization, but other groups where people do that, and I have to kind of pull them aside and explain that to them. It's just so unprofessional to do stuff like that, for sure. Because like you said, if if the survival hypothesis is correct, and we pass on after our physical life here, then we're the same kind of human consciousness and personality in the afterlife. So they should still be treated, with respect. And
Absolutely. And the reason why I'm saying that is because there were a few people that, for example, even here in San Diego, I it just blew my mind because I had a friend, which I did not know anything about him, about his personal story, a friend and acquaintance, I guess. And then all of a sudden, after a conversation with him, I'm coming home and I'm being contacted by a woman that used to be his wife who died 2 years ago. Like you said, ex-wife. That was not an ex-wife.
oh my God,
Like let's say
that happened. That happened to Sarah the other day too. We were talking about
yes.
this, and she kept calling the deceased person's the ex-wife. And I said that happened to me on the show with Yana. I kept saying ex-wife. I don't know what was going on. I've got it now. It's a deceased wife.
The deceased one, right? Yeah. So it's very interesting that she came to me and she asked me for a favor. She said there are two children that we had with my husband, two children that I'm asking you to help with my daughter. And she said, if you help me with my daughter that is having problems right now, I'll be watching after your kids. And I'm like thinking, oh my God, she's going to be looking after my kids from there. And not that I really need help for my kids to be watched by somebody else on that side, but I felt a tremendous grief for her because after even 2 years, she was still vigilant. She was still around her kids. And she told me one word. And she was actually, without even naming, she was a professor at one of the local universities. She was a psychology professor. I was very, she was a renowned scientist here. And she told me, she actually said one word, which I did not know that in English at all. She said, and I said, okay, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to look it up later. I don't know what she's talking about. This word. Oh, what does it mean? She said, he ostracized me.
Oh
And I'm
yes,
like,
ostracized. Yep.
ostracized. And I wrote it down and I looked it up and I understood the entire dynamics of what was happening there between them. And how would I come around just to say that, your wife that passed away contacted me, and asked for help? How am I going to go about that? I tried to help his daughter, but there was no chance because there was such a difficult dynamics there. And so unhealthy, I could not even get through. But what I'm trying to say, how important it is to even to listen what is happening there on the other side, because dying, for example, of cancer, that poor woman, that she, even after 2 years, she was still sticking around with her children that were young, that probably were 14 and 16. So that is very interesting. That
Yeah.
I could have easily brushed it off, just could have easily and just laughed it off, or even just dismiss it. But I learned I'm also a linguist, but I did not know that word, and I learned something interesting. But at the same time, I tried to help, but I couldn't. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Also common too that some individuals will hang around to kind of look after their kids from a spiritual sense. We just had a case a couple months ago where a gentleman's father had passed away in 1991 of a massive heart attack, and he was still present in the house. And when we brought our medium from Paranormal Phenomena Research Investigation to the house, she had talked to the spirit, and he basically said, like, when he died in 1991, he felt like he still had a lot of life to live, didn't want to leave his wife and his family. So he stuck around on our plane and continued to watch them. And fast forward from 1991 when he passed away, it was still 2023, and he was still there, kind of watching over his family. Um, but felt that it was time to move on. His wife had passed away this year, and when she passed away, she
Mm-hmm.
just disappeared. She didn't kind of hang around like he did, so
Mm-hmm.
he felt like he should go be with his wife. So Jody was able to kind of uh, talk to him, and he made the decision to kind of move on. However they do that, in the way that we don't understand scientifically. But yeah, so I mean, it's very common that if you pass away, that you might want to hang around with your loved ones and try and look after them as much as you can.
Exactly. And one of the funny cases that I had a friend which I came to visit, and she was getting ready to marry. Her wedding was supposed to be like in about 2 months from that time. And I was so happy for her, and we were discussing everything. And I went to wash my hands in the bathroom, and I'm noticed, oh, such a beautifully made bathroom, the incredible sink, marble everywhere. And all of a sudden, I hear a voice, a male voice. I did it all with my own hands. He's like this. So be careful. Don't touch anything. He's like this. I was
Oh
like,
my
oh
gosh.
my God, this is bathroom. I'm just washing my hands. And he said, I warned you. I made it all here with my own hands. Be careful with everything. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm going out, and I'm carefully asking her, so what is going on here? Someone just spoken to me in the bathroom. And she said, that is my husband that died 5 years ago. Oh, and he did everything with his own hands, and he was very protective of her. And she was communicating with him all this time. She never wanted to kick him out of the house, because you think that this is kind of weird. So she was welcoming his presence. And not only that, she said that he was the one who brought my present fiance, whom I'm going to marry soon, into my life. So you never know. But the fact
Wow.
is, that was the second person who did not have any frame of reference about what was going on. That I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know her life story, and all of a sudden, I'm able to read into the situation that happened some time ago, and even to communicate, to be able to hear what was happening. So it's not only her personal story now. It becomes the objective reality that if we, for example, listen to people and just saying that, oh, they're just making it all up because of the grief, because something happens to them, to their psychological state of mind. But when there are other people involved and they can hear and see the same as that person, then it becomes objective reality.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. No, that I agree with you. Um, those are all very fascinating experiences that you had.
This is so interesting that the Stanford Research Institute, when they started the project at Menlo Park in California with Russell Targ, the interesting thing is that Russell Targ, there was Harold Putnam. And Harold Putnam, interestingly enough, he was actually supporting the ideas of Madame Blavatsky, who, by the way, was Russian, in her book called Chemistry, where she was able to remotely view the inner structure of an atom. Atom. How would you pronounce it? Atom.
Adam, yep.
Atom, because that's not, that's, I guess, isn't a Latin word, right? Atom. So this is, if we look at that, these are two scientists at Stanford University, Russell Targ and Harold Putnam, right? The scientists, the physicists, and they are talking about occult mysticism. And why do they do that? Why couldn't they just be just like everybody else in the scientific community and just brushing it off? No, because they had an evidence that remote viewing is possible, although at the time of the Madame Blavatsky's, when she was writing her book, it was not called that way, right? But she was still able to look into inside of the atom, something that we're able to do now. If we look at that, into this remote viewing situation, I have been doing that, I guess, my entire life since I was a child, although I did not call it remote viewing. So when I discovered that and about the Stargate project and everything, I was so surprised that there's a whole science about it. And I have been doing that my entire life. Of course, I'm not going around and telling people that, but this is what I do. I inquire, I ask questions, I call it doing spiritual research. I inquire and I get answers. And how I'm able to see, not always that it happens, of course. Sometimes I'm not allowed to see that, I guess, what some would call karmically, um, well, we can be karmically predisposed to see something, karmically not predisposed. So evidently, I wasn't supposed to see something. But a lot of the times, I'm able to see what happened in the past, in the present, and in the future. But the future is not so clear as the past and the present that I can see. And I'm able to see into people's situation, like you and I were doing, doing our own research. Okay, like at 6 o'clock, I want you to tell me what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
And I planned, right? And I planned, I said, okay, I'm going to be baking at that time, which I rarely do nowadays. Okay, it was 6 o'clock. I said, you're going to tell me what I'm doing at the time. So it was 6 o'clock.
Yep.
And you said, you know what? later that I asked you, did you see what I
Yep.
was doing?
I
You
said
said,
all I
yeah.
could see was this white, sleek car, almost like a Tesla. And I said, I don't know why, but I just saw this Tesla. And then you said, yeah, my daughter called me and she was telling me about all the ugly white Teslas that drive around California, and that there's too many of them.
Exactly.
Which is
That
funny
was
because
exactly the same time.
at the time when I, got that impression, I didn't know if it would even mean anything. I mean, that's all that was coming to me, and yeah, so you just never know.
It's
Going
because
back.
you weren't specifically following the protocol, okay? Because you were running around, but if you decided, okay, like take it seriously, I'm gonna just sit down and I'm gonna do this experiment, you would have gotten it probably. You would have gotten in the baking part and the Tesla part and everything, but you're in between different projects. But you were still
Yeah,
being
and
able, you were able to tune in and
yeah,
see
and that's the
that
thing too. You have to use
conversation.
all your senses too. Like maybe you would have got a smell of the baking, or something like that. Remote viewings using all your senses, not just your mind.
And that is not a difficult thing at all. And those people, by the way, who did remote viewing at the Menlo Park at the Stanford University, those people were not originally psychics. Yes, they were employing Uri Geller, the man from Israel, right? Which prompted the Department of Defense interest in this project. And that's why they started pouring all the millions of dollars into the Stargate project. But a lot of the people, they were just the ordinary individuals that just followed the protocol and were able to get their minds on the alpha waves length, right? And then being able to see remotely. It's not a difficult thing. It is possible to learn. And the only thing that is stopping us, I believe, is our own mind.
Yep. No, for sure. I agree with that. I think a lot of people would say that we're our own worst enemy when it comes to things like that. Yeah.
Because from the very young age, we're told we can't do this. You can't do this. And of course, that you're being banished for weird things like, oh, seeing spirits, for example, right? Or communicating with somebody that you don't see in a room. So that can be seen by different societies as a very silly thing. And you and I growing up, okay, well, actually, it was a little different probably in my society with my parents, because we lived in Baku in Azerbaijan, and it was uh, a mountain area with lots of mountains and hills. And there was lots of sightings of the UFO. And even from my balcony, we were able to see that because we lived on the hilly side in the city. And on the left, through all of our balconies, we were able to see the Caspian Sea, the Gulf of the Sea. It was so beautiful. And to the left, it would be the Gulf of the Sea. And in front of us, the city that would end with mountains. And the sun would be setting behind those mountains, would be so gorgeous. But then we would see a lot of the times getting onto the balcony, like at night, in the evening, and at night, we would be able to see a lot of the UFOs. And at that time, we did not have technologies that would uh, to build the spacecraft that would move silently. At that time, we didn't have it, and that they would move silently. That is so interesting to me that we were able to see that, and not just me and my parents and the neighbors of ours. And that was interesting. So growing up there, of course, it was country that did not believe in God, right? It was 70 years of godless story, so to say. And people did not even go to church. And if they did, it would be really hush hush, and nobody would even tell each other, wouldn't share about it. So if your child, like myself, speaking about my parents, if your child starts seeing things that other people don't talk about, and you have no idea how to deal with it, what do you do with it? So I was so thankful to my parents to actually support me on that. But the
Yeah,
only thing they told me,
that's
they
really
told me
good. A
that,
lot of
yeah,
parents would try and shut it down or try and discourage the child. So that's good that you had supportive parents.
yeah, the only thing that they told me, don't tell anybody, just tell us. And I realized that it would be said that,
That's funny.
it is schizophrenia and it's clinics and everything like that. But my parents, they were really fascinated. But what I was telling them, because it wasn't always any uh, incredibly wonderful, fun things that I would tell them. What would happen? Actually, a lot of the times in the future, if I saw it, I would see death, either of a close relatives or somebody that I would see on the street. I would know how many days they would have left to live, and I somehow that information was transpired to me, and I would tell them, and surely enough, that would happen. But it those are the just the not such common cases. And a lot of the times that we didn't know what to do with it. And as a parent, for example, now that I'm able to know what is happening now, and what's happening beyond after we die, and researching this life from the point of transpersonal psychology and archetypal psychology. With my kids, I know what is happening. I know when they see something that is legitimate. I know I'm able to talk to them about their dreams and help them understand them. So we need to have more understanding parents.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think when it comes to the paranormal, a lot of parents try and silence their kids and don't want to bring it up. But I obviously, being a paranormal investigator, I'm pretty open about it with my two kids too. Meadow is really fascinated. She's my 3.5-year-old. She's really
She's
fascinated
so
by
cute.
ghosts and
So cute.
ghosts and zombies and all
Incredible
that stuff.
personality.
And my other daughter, she's more like a skeptic. I think. I don't think she really pays as much
But
attention
she's a
to it.
beautiful skeptic.
Yeah, yeah, she is. Yeah, you guys are listening to Science and the Paranormal, broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and also on Roku TV. Tonight we're talking about law enforcement and mediumship.
all of a sudden, Dr. Elliott turned into this radio voice. All of a sudden, yeah,
I try and get it in there. I try and get it in there. Just imagine if we get a couple of sponsors. If there's anyone out there that wants to sponsor us, we can throw your information out there too.
yeah. Please email us. Yeah,
Yes,
that would be
actually,
great.
yeah, we do have a website, guys. If anyone's interested, you can go to our website at www.scienceandparanormalpodcast.com, or you can send Yana or myself an email at scienceandtheparanormal@ppri.net as well.
For sure, and we welcome any questions. We haven't had
Yeah.
any questions here, have we?
No, no, not tonight. Not tonight.
Someone wrote cops here. So what is cops? I don't understand. I
I
guess
don't
they're
know.
calling you cops
Could
because
be.
you were working in the law
I
enforcement. But in
I've been called
fact,
worse.
ooh,
um, no, going back to mediums and law enforcement, I know sometimes when we get information from mediums, it can be overwhelming. And one big case, if anyone remembers the disappearance of Elizabeth Smart, which happened, I think, in 2002, the police in Salt Lake City had received over 9,000 tips from psychics or mediums. Some of them saying that they had visions, some of them saying that they had dreams. It took the police several hours to go through a lot of those tips. The family felt that none of the information provided by the mediums were had any like valuable information, and she was eventually somebody had recognized her abductor from a police photograph. Is how they kind of solved this one, and it had nothing to do with any of the psychic information that they had received. So sometimes, depending if it's a high-profile case, the police can get overburdened with a lot of phone calls of information. And again, most people are calling because they want to help, but it can also kind of create a bit of a burden too, investigate a burden for the police.
that is that can be problematic because if you're waiting for some legitimate information from the witnesses, for example, and then you get bombarded with all sorts of calls from people who are supposedly seen something, that can be problematic. But you said that you all have to follow up on that, not to be what you said, red herring.
Yeah, you don't want a red herring left over, something that you didn't follow up on, because if you do, if it does go to criminal court and there's charges laid, and somebody provided you the name of another possible suspect, and the first thing the defense lawyer would say is, did you follow up on that tip? Well, no, we didn't. So you didn't look into this guy that could, you had a citizen come forward saying that it might have been, a suspect. Yes. And you never followed up on it. No. So it looks really bad, and it can kind of discredit your case. So that's why the police, even in the Elizabeth Smart case, it took them several hours to go through all those psychic tips. It's because they have a duty to go through it. Another kind of black eye in the law enforcement world using mediums was from Sylvia Brown. It's funny. I remember I bought one of her books and read it, and I mean, she was a good storyteller, but she certainly had some issues in her life. She was charged with fraud a couple of times, but she had a really bad incident in 2004, I think it was. She told the mother of Amanda Berry, who had been missing for a period of time, that she has died, that she was deceased. And Amanda's mother had passed away, thinking that her daughter had been killed, but she was actually found alive in May 2013. She had been kidnapped by 3 individuals, and so Sylvia certainly received a lot of criticism for that false statement. By telling the mom, that her daughter had been killed, and then of course the mom passed away, so she never got to live and see that her daughter was actually still alive. Although I'm sure she would have known on the other side, in the spiritual side, you know, she would have had more answers than Sylvia would have.
Exactly. But the thing is that there are a lot of people who are eager to share the information that they have supposedly received that did not even check. You have to check, even if you're a medium or psychic, you still have to check that information to check your sources, right? You have to check your sources because you can't just absolutely believe the first thing that comes to your mind. You have to verify. You have to check with yourself, with your sources, and then relay this information to anybody, especially information like a loved one dying. That's I remember my grandmother when she was in World War II, and she was so good. She was, I guess, the psychic at the time, and she was really good about being able to see things in the cards. That was, it always blew my mind. She knew everything all the time about anybody. She just like pulls out the playing cards and bam, she knows everything about everybody. So she told me um, that after World War II, and even the last couple of years of the war, the women would always come to her and ask, could you please tell us if our husband is alive or maybe he's dead or missing? Just please tell us. And she said, so many times I would be able to see that they're dead, but I could not bring myself to tell them and to deprive them of the last hope. She said, I could not do that. So, where is that ethical line that we have to draw in order to tell people? Like this psychic went ahead and told the mother that her daughter was dead. Um, we have to be able to accept this kind of information with doubt, with a healthy doubt. Otherwise, it will be impossible to live. Like, for
Yeah,
example,
I like the way Chuck dealt with his case there with the family from California, where he was getting the information from the son on the spiritual side, but he wasn't telling the family that.
exactly,
And
right.
then he gave them the information. They gave it to the police, and then the police called and told the family, we found him and this, and then they called Chuck back and said they found him, they found his body, they found his truck. Boom! Now he can come and say something to the effect of, yeah, I was talking to your son in the spiritual form, kind of thing, because now he wasn't the one that said, your son is deceased. And he told me that he hates doing it anyways, just in case that little voice, because he's a clear audience, so he hears
Hmm.
information from his spirit guide. But he said he's always worried that the spirit guide will give him some false information or that he'll be wrong. He said
And
he's
that's quite
never,
possible.
yeah, he said he's never been wrong, but he said, like, when it comes to telling somebody that their loved one is deceased and you're wrong about that, he said that's a huge mistake. So I think, yeah, Sylvia probably should have used some restraint there, probably in that case, in the Amanda case.
I have, I was thinking this morning, I've read something um, in the line of somehow when we are really experts in something, we always doubt ourselves. But people who are not experts at all, who are not even knowledgeable in the area that they portray themselves as being knowledgeable, they are the loudest. And the people who are actual experts, they will not be so loud. So if you look at this Sylvia, what was her last name?
Sylvia Brown.
Yeah, Sylvia Brown. If you look at that, and if has she passed away already? You
That's a
said she
good.
passed away.
That's a good
No,
question.
she
It's
didn't.
uh,
I hope she's not listening to
ac-
us
ac-
and not sending any
actually,
curses at me.
I think she did pass away. Actually,
Okay.
yeah.
Or maybe from the other side, not passing any course. How dare you doubting me?
I'm pretty sure she did. Just
But
let me double check.
that was
Yeah, she
actual
passed away in
misinformation.
2013.
All right. Okay. So hopefully, even from the other side, she's not going to be coming to me and say, knock, knock. How dare you? Which is quite possible, but that is a real problem when people have such confidence in their knowledge that they are ready to share that with other people without checking their sources. May
Yeah, and
the force be with us.
that's just it. You have to you have to try and corroborate as much information as possible. Especially before you make a accusation like that somebody's child's passed away.
Yeah, with the I remember that how we actually I was a child at the time. I wasn't even born at the time, I guess, when United States decided to really employ psychics for the military project, because at the time they were so concerned about the psychotronic research in Soviet Union, and the Russians actually employing a lot of psychics for the remote viewing projects, that we decided to do the same thing here at the time. And I guess it was the same thing with the moon, going to the moon, right? The Russians went to the moon, and we have to really beat the Russians and land to the moon first. So we developed, somehow we can't read as much of this information about the Russian projects, but in the United States, declassification of this documents has been really public, and anyone can look into that.
Yeah, the yeah, you're right. I think you're right when you said earlier that the Russians are almost better at keeping secrets than the Americans for sure. It seems that they definitely talk a lot less about their projects and things like that than we do.
Yeah, that's true, because I remember that when I was teaching special forces and I was teaching Russian, they would talk a lot about everything. And I would remind them, I said, we are learning Russian here, and you never know who is standing in front of you. Why would you be discussing that with me? How do you know if I'm not a double agent somewhere? Or God forbid anybody of those people are listening to us right now. How do you know that? And I told them about that the Ellen Dulles' phrase, that that's our problem, that we're too uh what is the word, mm, not we're blabbing too much. In any case, we're blabbing too much. It's the evening time and it's snow outside, and we're blabbing too much. Yeah, so as Americans, we're blabbing too much. What about the in Canada? What's the situation there?
Canada's yeah, a little bit more quiet too with its disclosure, but we do have also a very unique situation. For example, with UFO files, UFOs used to be investigated by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the organization that I used to work for.
Mm.
So there's a lot of police documentation that exists on these cases. And they're really good because this is before the Freedom of Information Act kind of came into effect. So you actually had witness names involved. So you could kind of like get the police report and kind of do your own investigation. So we've had some really cool cases that we've been able to find. And the government of Canada also on their National Archive website has also posted some of their bigger UFO cases, ones that people always ask for disclosure on. So they posted it online. But it was kind of neat that we had the RCMP that used to investigate UFO sightings, and there was a whole excuse me, there was a whole procedure on what to do when a UFO sighting would come in. You'd have to call the Canadian forces and let them know, and you had to do it before you went off shift. If you didn't do it before you went off shift, you get in a lot of trouble. So it was kind of cool that we had that system in place. They don't do they don't do UFO investigations anymore per se. If somebody was to call in, call 911 right now and say that they saw a UFO, it would generate a file, and they would certainly have to go and investigate it. But it's not like before where there was a lot of documentation done and different agencies were notified and things like that. Other than that, we didn't. I actually looked to see if we did any remote viewing, psychic kind of experiments up here in Canada, and there's none that really stood out that we did, unless there was some talk that possibly Canada might have given some money to the U.S. To help with their funding. So sometimes Canada will do that instead of running a project or an operation themselves. They'll just kind of
Mm.
piggyback off of one of the one of their friendly nations. Yeah, so we didn't necessarily have anything like that, but we have had some cool stuff. One of the cool things was the 1967 Shag Harbor UFO crash that happened off
Mm.
the coast of Nova Scotia, which is the province that I live in. And again, that was documented by the RCMP. There was RCMP police reports and multiple witnesses involved, and the Canadian Navy and the American Navy were involved. So um, it was basically called Canada's Roswell, except there was a lot more government documentation involved with it, which was good. And that one was never solved. It was October 4th, 1967. A couple of local people in the Shag Harbor area saw some lights kind of descending in the night sky, and they thought it was an airplane. And it kept kind of going down towards the water, and eventually they kind of realized that it was in trouble, and they said, this doesn't look good. It looks like it's going to crash. And then sure enough, it did. It crashed into the ocean, and they could see lights underneath the water. So of course they called the local RCMP, and they thought that the kids were drinking, because there was young kids
Mm.
that had witnessed it. So but all of a sudden, other individuals were calling the police station, saying that they had witnessed something crash into the ocean as well. So the RCMP dispatched a couple of members from Barrington detachment to go and investigate, and some of the local fishermen came out and helped them go out and search the water. They found like a strange yellow foam on top of the water. The lights eventually kind of disappeared, and then they had to wait until daytime and get a real extensive search going. But they never found anything. They never found any debris. They never found any luggage. Didn't have any missing planes. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, it remains a unsolved UFO case.
Well, maybe that was not crashed. What appeared to be a crashing site that was not a crashing, because a lot of the time that they can disappear under the water, and they can have their bases under the water as well. So which would be on the North Pole, or also at the South Pole.
Yeah, it could be. That was one theory. Is that there was a kind of a second story that came out of Shag Harbor, and the story is that the UFO had kind of traveled up the coast of Nova Scotia to another community called Shelburne, where a second UFO had come down and tried to help repair it. And my friend Chris Stiles, he'd be an interesting guy to have on our show sometime. Actually, he's a great talker and very well versed in the UFO field. Um, he actually was able to kind of piece this together just recently. He just put out his new book called Clear Sweep 5. And what Clear Sweep 5 is it was a NATO exercise. And what he found through his digging in part of Shag Harbor was he spoke to some divers that were involved in this. And they said that the Shelburne UFO incident was actually happened 7 years before Shag Harbor in 1960. It was a totally different UFO incident. So off the coast of Shelburne, there was a UFO underwater that was damaged. There was a second UFO that came to kind of help repair it. Chris interviewed some of the divers that were involved, and they said that they took video footage of extraterrestrials repairing the craft underneath the water, and submitted that footage to the government. And they
It disappeared. What happened with the
Of
footage?
course, yeah, it disappeared. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's a very, very fascinating, case, and That'd be interesting if we do a UFO episode. I'll have to have Chris on because
Let's do a UFO episode. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because he I won't ruin his research, but I'll let him tell the story. But no, he did a lot of digging. But the most fascinating thing I found was when he interviewed the divers that said that they were filming extraterrestrials that were outside the spacecraft underwater, trying to repair it. And that was coming from Canadian Navy divers that told him that.
Did we have equipment to videotape under the water at the time?
I believe so. Yeah, it sounded like it was those old bulky cameras
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah. I
thing.
remember
Yeah,
that with Jean-Jacques Cousteau. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, very very fascinating.
No, but information like that, of course, is going to be disappearing. And that is so interesting to me. Why would all that research be classified and not really known to the public? Why is that, in your opinion?
Well, with extraterrestrials, you think?
Yeah.
Like, that's a good question. I kind of feel like the government still, even though things are kind of opening up and people are becoming more open to the idea of everything, and I think today now with the way UFO disclosure is going, I think people wouldn't be surprised if if it came out that we're not alone, that there's extraterrestrials. But I do think that they still have this fear that it's going to cause things like the stock market to go crazy. It's going to cause
Hmm.
religions to go crazy. It's going to cause maybe some civil unrest. Um, but I know, for example, like we're all kind of fatigued after COVID and all the different things that have happened, like inflation and the cost of things and the shortages of products and supply and demand. And I remember when they were talking about those alien bodies from Peru in Mexico. They basically, it was on TV. They were having this Mexican Congress hearing, and they showed bodies that they said were extraterrestrials.
The
And
small ones like that?
yeah, the
Uh-huh.
little small guys there. And
Okay.
I know the testing has come out since then, and they did have someone else test it, saying that there's part of it that they don't understand where the DNA comes from, so it doesn't appear to be something from here on Earth. And that caught like almost no media attention at all. You know what I mean? Like people, and there was actually TikToks and like memes going around, like saying like, the government and the media just said that aliens exist and nobody cares and no one's saying anything. And it's so true because like everyone's just so wrapped up kind of like in their own lives right now. And, some people are just trying to make ends meet, and we have enough problems that, hearing that aliens exist, people, it doesn't phase them anymore. So I really don't know why the government continues to deny us that information.
But
It's
it's also the directive from the government to the mass media organizations, to the newspapers, and to the TV shows also not to talk about it. There's a directive. I'm sure about that.
Yeah, the one fascinating thing I found this year was David Grush coming forward and making the claims that he did as a former U.S. intelligence officer, saying that he's spoken to multiple different people. Some people on some of the podcasts he's been on, he's named some of the people he's spoken to about them having crashed UFO material, not of Earth, and non-human biologics, things like that. And again, the media just, I don't know, doesn't seem to be
When did
that
that
interested.
happen?
That was all this year during
It was
the
this year.
yeah
How
during
could I
this
miss that?
yeah during when U.S. Congress had a UFO hearing, which I listened to, which was very fascinating. They had three people that used to work for the government. The one gentleman was a fighter pilot that caught that famous video you see. They call it the Tic Tac
Right.
UFO. He was the gentleman that caught that. And then they had David Grush, who's a former U.S. intelligence officer that was working on a UFO retrieval program. And yeah, it's very fascinating. But for some reason, the government still has that flex where they just don't answer our questions. They just kind of typical political answers, right? They just talk in circles and don't really answer our questions.
That's true. That's true. That is so interesting that now we are able to actually determine and have a sample to investigate and research and actually determine that those species did not have human DNA, and that is
Yeah,
have extraterrestrial DNA. Octopus is actually what the scientists have discovered, that octopus, they are the ultimate shapeshifters, and they don't have the DNA that came from the Earth.
I've heard that actually. There was a university professor, he might have been from Harvard, that wrote a paper on octopuses, thinking that octopuses might have been extraterrestrial.
That's very interesting because we never know how the life appeared on this Earth from the
Yeah,
same probably organisms that were somewhere in on other planets, somewhere in extraterrestrial space.
yeah. No, it's really fascinating. Yeah, I'm just searching the news now. So, like the Daily Mail, for example, says the mummified aliens found in Peru have 30% DNA of unknown species, and that was just released 2 weeks ago.
And then I haven't heard about it. That
I
is
know,
so interesting.
I know.
Seems to me
That's
that it should become the really the fascinating public subject to discuss, but it is not.
No, that's what I mean. I'm blown away that it's not, you know, more big popular news, but it's almost like I don't know. People are just wrapped up in their own world, I guess, just trying to survive. Not sure what's going on. I think it's absolutely fascinating, especially given how vast the universe is and how many planets there are, and just the vast distances. I mean, we can't be the only living thing, you know, floating around in the universe.
And
Got to be some other people out there.
floating around in the universe.
Maybe there's some aliens listening to our podcast.
Floating around. Are you thinking about taking a bath now, floating in the bathtub? Getting your sinuses to work. It's like
Oh,
floating around in the
they're fill
universe.
yeah, they're filling up again on me. I'll probably have one more tea
Oh my
before bed
God.
here. I
Oh,
managed. Mostly managed to survive.
poor thing. Exactly. You managed to survive. Yes. And I hope that you will feel better tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping. I'm hoping. Do you have any projects on the go? I know you said you were contacted a while ago about possibly doing an investigation in your area.
Yeah, but for that investigation, they actually asked me not to talk about it. And, I see so many cases like that. People don't want to be discussed by the public. They don't want their names to be known because they
I don't
still
think that's
think,
necessarily a bad thing, though.
well, it is
Because
not.
I think it's
Exactly.
good. It shows that somebody's not out seeking, media attention or stuff like that.
Yeah, and that is also, of course, that it becomes public. It can ruin careers, it can ruin lives and relationships. So it's better not. And a lot of the times when people would contact me, they would ask things to be confidential. Of course, I can change names and just talk about it. But if this one is so fresh now that they will know that I'm talking about them, so I would rather not. But it's with another, I guess it's a personal case of mine. Um, I have been working with a person for probably for the past couple of years. And the interesting thing is that we discovered uh, what stood behind his family problems. And the family problems that he had was just a nonstop physical illnesses of every member of the family. And we were able to pinpoint the person who stood behind it. And at that time, we tackled the problem and we were able to set the guard on the family and heal them all. But that person is one of the, I would say, one of the very indecent people who would tackle with the witchcraft and actually want to make the life of that family miserable.
Hmm.
And I thought we closed the case last year. But this year, when he came back, he actually said that they have been sick for the past 5 months and unable to get out of it. And I said, okay, I'm going to look into that without even promising because you never know. And Dr. Elliott, I looked into that, meaning I haven't done anything. I just looked into that. Guess what? I started
What?
to have all of the physical problems that family has, including the back problems, the sciatica problems of his. And I'm like, what is going on? Because he didn't tell me about it in the detail what was happening to him. And like, I went to the doctors. I had the shots in my back, because I couldn't even walk. I couldn't sit. It was so bad. Like, what is happening to me? I couldn't even work on his case during this week. So when he called me, I said, listen, I have not been able to attend to your case because this has been really difficult for me. And he said, what happened? And he's a doctor. And I shared with him. He said, this is incredible because this is exactly what's been happening to me for quite some time now. And I understood. So the person who was bothering them last year came back, and I asked to send the picture of the person to me back again because in my notes, I don't usually keep the photographs of the people. And that was one of the most horrifying pictures of a person in his 30s. The most horrifying. I saw that you posted, what was that, on Instagram, I guess. You posted the cursed paintings.
Oh yes, yeah, yep.
One of them was the painting of a child. And when I looked at that,
Oh yes, yes.
I couldn't even look at it more than a second or even split second because that was not a child. And there was a reason why that painting is cursed.
Yeah, that's probably
Because
the crying boy painting
no,
that
it
you saw.
wasn't a crying boy. It was a girl. It was a girl. It was actually the really nice, pretty painting of a girl, like probably 10 years old.
Okay.
Or maybe I looked it up. Oh yeah, I did my own research. I said, how many people, how many cursed paintings are there? And one of them was that. So
Okay.
interestingly enough, when I looked at that and I said to myself, this is absolutely incredible. By just looking at the picture of somebody and know that there is something demonic behind it, and you don't want to look at that for more than a second. So the same thing happened here. And I understood that this is a completely demonic entity behind this person. And that is why that he was able, that was a guy, and that's why he was able to torture this family so much, because of the jealousy and hatred, and really doing the black magic for many, many, many years. And we can dismiss that, of course, as something non-existent, but it has been in my case right now, and all I did was to look.
Wow.
I didn't ask questions. I didn't even call upon any counselors to see. I just looked.
Wow.
Who
Yeah. The
could that
those.
be? And bam, because they can put a shield, so they will not be discovered. And whoever finds out about them, they know immediately, by the way, they know immediately who sees that, who figure them out, who calls the rats out, so he did. And that's why I got all these problems. And as soon as I realized that, and I got all the courts, and was just a simple, uh, what are they called? I'm falling asleep here already. It's winter time, winter. With certain just simple rituals, I was able to rid myself of that situation. However, I still have remnants, but no sciatica. I'm able to walk. So it's impossible. Today you have sciatica, you're dying, you're unable to walk, and then tomorrow you don't. As soon as I was able to pinpoint that. So here's the thing, you don't have to even battle the um, the dark world. You don't have to battle. It's enough sometimes to even look at the origin of the problem. And actually, by sympathetic connection with those people and with the situation, you can get the same kind of problems. And I'm sure that it happened in your uh, paranormal investigation career as well, when mediums would come and they would immediately be able to sense what is happening on the spot, right, in the houses. They would even have problems like
Yeah, I've seen
stomach
some.
or headaches or anything like
Yes.
that with the person who died there.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen where they've felt the person's symptoms, like for example, when Jody went to the house where the gentleman's dad had died of a heart attack, she felt the symptoms of that. But I've also seen mediums go to homes and almost suffer spiritual attacks, almost like what you were describing with the
Hmm.
with this occult kind of case here. So yeah, very, very interesting.
I see John Harley commenting, saying that that
Yeah,
had
she
a
did. Oh my
comment.
God! Just
Yeah,
had a comment. Had a picture in our hallway when I was a child. Hated it or scared, should I say? Yeah, some paintings or pictures just kind of give you give you that bad vibe.
a lot
Looks
of
like
them, a lot of
looks
them.
like Sherry was watching us tonight too. She put a
Yeah,
little
Sherry.
alien.
Hello, Dr. Sherry. Look at that UFO.
That's
I
awesome.
was gonna mention one case, and we will be done for today because our time is coming to an
Yes.
end.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was in Washington, D.C., probably like 15 years ago, maybe longer. And I went to the Smithsonian Museum and I was just walking around, and I love museums, and was just strolling along. And in one of the rooms, I saw the very interesting, very small painting of what I thought probably was Jesus, because it was a naked child with a staff. So in my mind, that was probably Jesus. But that painting attracted my attention like a magnet,
Hmm.
and I took a picture of it. And what I did, I put it as a screensaver on my phone. I can't tell you the horror I went through until the time that I took off that painting and destroyed it actually from my phone.
Really?
So unbelievably horrible things, and I would get so sick by even looking at this painting, and I would get hallucinations even. So I came back probably in a couple of days. I was staying in DC for a few days, and in a couple of days I realized what was happening, and I took that picture off, and oh my God, I said, never in my life. So I'm going back to the Smithsonian Museum, and I'm getting to the same room where the painting was hanging. And there is a person, one of the attendants, the docents, and I asked him, said, "Do you know this painting?" He said, "I've been working here for the past 20 years, and I've never seen this painting in this room ever in my life until you pointed to it.
Wow.
Now, how is it possible?" And when he was standing in front of it, he said, "This is a horrifying picture." And he started to get sick and dizzy at the same time. So, even paintings, we never know how they were made. We never know what intentions were put behind that painting. So,
Yeah, that's true.
it's
Well,
a real
I've
stories
got
from
one.
life.
I've got one in my office that's just it. The lady was going through a hard time when she painted it, and when she was finished and put it up on her wall, it would always fly off her wall, and it ended up striking her husband one night. So I told her, she was looking to get rid of it.
And
So
you put it to your house?
I had her ship it. Yeah, I've got it up here in my office on my wall.
So nothing happened? Nothing
No,
happened since then?
haven't had anything
Everything is
happen.
fine?
No,
Maybe
everything's
that
good.
painting had something against the husband.
Maybe, maybe.
That is very interesting.
I'll have to
Yeah.
find out from Michelle. I'll have to talk to Michelle and find out how we put images up on the on our podcast for the people that are watching, because
Yeah. That would be great to do.
sometimes I can throw up like a picture of that for people to see and stuff. I'll find out next week from Michelle.
I
And
guess we can share a screen. Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out.
yeah.
All right. All right. Well, this has been such an interesting conversation.
It has.
And
I'm glad I made it through.
you did. You did, for which I'm so grateful.
I could not leave my partner hanging high and dry.
You're like sipping teas, taking baths, like, come on, spring. Then I was okay,
I was doing
I gotta be
everything.
present. I gotta be present. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Elliott.
No problem.
And thanks everyone who was watching and listening to us on the Science and Paranormal on the United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM. And we are ending up for tonight and hope to see you next week. And by next week, Dr. Elliott is going to be all nice and healthy and going to be.
I'll be back 100%
back.
Next week. Yeah, I'll be back 100% next week, guys.
All right.
All right. Everyone
have a
great
good night, everyone.
And thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.